What's up, audience? It's Controversial Quotes, and we are going to discuss politics today. Let me just put on some lights. All right, I just want to light up my room. All right, I think that's a little bit better. Trump just he completed a military action that was highly controversial, to say the least, against Iran. If you look at Twitter, there were images of the U.S. B-2 stealth bomber supposedly obliterating Iranian nuclear sites. This happened last week, but again, go to the Drudge Report. The Drudge Report is my primary source of news. According to the Drudge Report, there's not conclusive evidence that the Iranian bombing campaign worked to stifle the nuclear program of Iran. We don't know where all of the enriched uranium went. Previously, in the previous days before the bombing, we saw via satellite images the Iranians were evacuating the uranium from Fordo. So, it looks to me like the Iranians might have tricked us into wasting bombs on non existent nuclear sites, essentially. The IAEA did say that there was some evidence of contamination at Natanz, but where it seems like the bombing campaign that Trump engaged in against Iran didn't really work. I would argue that the Iranians really might have gotten the best of the United States and Israel, because they proved that they could successfully launch ballistic missiles at Tel Aviv and inflict an enormous amount of destruction. Now, I mean, the Iranians have no morals. I strongly condemn, the Iranian attack on Tel Aviv, and I thank the moderate Arab states that let Israel have fly over their countries, in order to attempt to decapitate the Iranian military. Um, I think that the Israeli assassination campaign against the Iranian generals was probably more destructive towards the Iranian regime than the United States, bombing of Fordo with the B-2s and the bunker busting bombs. I mean, it just seems to me like there's no evidence that we really inflicted any damage. All right, so if you look at the Drudge Report now, you're going to notice. Oh, okay, so let's. I'm going to hold off on the spending bill. I want to talk about the divide between Tucker Carlson and what's it? Ben Shapiro. I forgot his name. Yeah, Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson are the leaders of the Republican Party. They both come from separate wings, obviously. It seems like Tucker Carlson is an isolationist that doesn't want the United States to fund the Ukraine or Israel. Tucker Carlson recently had an extremist in the figure of Marjorie Taylor Greene on his show. I mean, I have no use for Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's not my type of Republican. Yeah, I mean, on the issue of, do I support Trump or the Democrats, I'm definitely somewhere in between. I've said repeatedly on this broadcast that I don't like tariffs or high minimum wages. I think that it's not possible for the government to successfully get into the economy and produce the types of changes people want by rigging prices. Okay, so there's a battle within the Republican Party, between people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ben Shapiro. The isolationists do not want to have any war overseas whatsoever. They're under the impression that, if the United States cuts military spending, we're going to be better off. They don't want funding for Ukraine or Israel at all. Um, and theologically, there's a debate within conservative Christian circles about replacement theology. Some Christians believe that the church replaced the state of Israel, and that all of God's blessings that he originally imparted on Israel now belong to the church. But you're going to see that, there are, and that's the school to which I think Tucker Carlson belongs to. But there's another school of thought, within Republican Christian evangelical circles, that rejects replacement theology emphatically. And one of those sources is the influential mega pastor by the name of Pastor John Hagee. I mean, if you listen to John Hagee, he uh, clearly rejects replacement theology and believes and has said that as long as the Jews live in light of the Torah, that God still loves them. But I mean, but both of these groups of Christians have a very narrow-minded view of soteriority. That they believe that they're the only ones that are going to heaven, and everyone else, is going to hell. Basically, I mean, I've listened to them say that on many of their YouTube channels. Now, back to the Republican divide. I've never seen the Republicans more divided than they are now. I mean, Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro used to be people who agree with each other. They don't agree on like very much right now. I mean, I think the only thing Tucker and Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro agree on is banning trans women from sports. And there's more to the Republican Party than that. I mean, if the Republican Party is just going to be a bunch of people who want to ban trans women from sports, then I would say that they have a major problem because there's no uniting issue. But that being said, we've had a two-party political system in America for the past 40 years. I believe it's about to fall apart. I'm there. There have been many attempts at a third party. They all fail all the time. Now you're having ranked choice voting try to remedy that. Um, there's a voting system wherein you could vote for your first pick and then your second pick. I think it's ridiculous, and I think it should be banned. I am opposed to ranked choice voting. Spoiler candidates like Ralph Nader have always been part of the American political landscape, and ranked choice voting is an attempt at circumventing that. Back to Tucker versus Ben. I don't believe that it's possible. Well, first of all, Tucker Carlson appeared, he's on many YouTube videos back from the Bush administration where he fervently advocated bombing Iran. Yeah, Tucker Carlson opposed the bombing of Iran now, but if you look back at what he said in the past during the Bush administration on YouTube, he advocated bombing Iran clearly. He was under the impression then that the Iranians were a threat to world peace, and he clearly stated that we should have bombed them. uh, is Iran a threat to world peace? Well, I mean, Iran supplied Russia with drones that completely eviscerated Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. I definitely think that they qualify as a financier of international terrorism. Um, did I support the bombing of Iran by Trump? Yes. I mean, I think that, in fact, the best thing Israel did during the war was manage to take down the Syrian regime and inflict harm on the Iranian regime. It was about time that somebody extract revenge, against Iranian military commanders for all of the damage that they inflict throughout the world. So, the, with concern to the Israeli-Palestinian issue, I mean, perhaps I'm not going to take a stand on Gaza, but I would say that yes, I endorsed uh, the week-long bombing campaign that Israel waged against Iran because I believe that it was about time for somebody to put the Iranians in their place. And you're going to find that a lot of Arab states quietly supported the campaign, despite the fact that they had some misgivings publicly. I think. You know what? Why don't the Iranians get out of Yemen? I mean, if you look at the amount of people the Iranians killed in Yemen, you're going to find that it exceeded the death toll of Israel's Gaza campaign, by a wide margin. So, yeah, again, I would tend to support their, bombing of Iran. All right, so now Elon Musk is raging at Donald Trump. He's Trump. If you look at the Drudge Report, you're going to see that Elon Musk is calling, he's stating that the Great Big Beautiful Bill funds the industries of the past while denying funds for the industry of the future. One interesting fact about the Great Big Beautiful Bill is that it does raise taxes on university endowments. You know, universities like Harvard, Stanford, and Columbia have like these huge investment funds that manage so many billions of dollars that I'm not even aware of how much it is. It's well over. I think the Harvard Investment Fund has like over $20 billion in management, and they pay no taxes. If I start a hedge fund, that raises $20 million in taxes, yeah, I got to pay capital gains tax. Why is it that these universities, whether or not universities pay, capital gains tax on their endowments, I would say that it is a controversial issue. The United States, is a technology leader, throughout the world because we have universities that develop the technology. I mean, I guess it's true to say that university investments should be tax free. It's debatable. You know, in terms of Trump revoking all of the university's grants because he didn't like their politics, I don't think that's something I support. I absolutely believe that in order for America to have a future, we have to have a vibrant space program. We have to be the leader in nanotechnology, especially. Uh, and the more I think about it, I would say that I oppose Trump's desire to take away funds from universities. I think that the university system, as flawed as it is a bastion of American ingenuity. Americans give churches $80 billion in tax exemptions. I mean, if we're giving $80 billion in tax exemptions to people who read the Bible and say that if you don't believe the Bible, you go to hell, it seems that we have an obligation to fund our university system. Um, yeah, so that's an aspect of the Great Big Beautiful Bill that the more I think about, the more I disagree with. I think that society has to plan for the future, and when Elon Musk criticizes the Big Beautiful Bill for cutting industries of the future in order to fund the past, that does worry me. I mean, Trump seems when he says "Make America Great Again," it does seem like he wants to go back, to the 1950s. Around where I live, there was a brick warehouse that went out of business and has become a museum about ecology. That's just the way societies function. I mean, people don't want to work in factories, they want to work in intellectual fields. Trump, with his tariff program, seems to be interested in keeping people working in factories that they don't want to work in. I work in retail. There's plenty of jobs available. The top reason what's if you were to ask me if you were to tell me that there aren't enough jobs in America, I would ask you why. Since I work in retail, I would say, why is it that the top reason why people quit their retail job is just because they quit? It seems to me like, a lot of my fellow employees, some of them get fired for stealing. Well, I mean, if you steal in a store that has cameras in it, you're obviously very rich. You're not living in an economy that doesn't provide you with enough jobs because, you shouldn't, pill for a can of Coke and lose $40,000 because of that. Most people who work in retail are given career opportunities that would benefit them if they were to work at their job. They get fired because they don't want to go to work. We had one guy get fired, because he was no call, no show for like an entire week. And he came back and thought he could keep his job, but then he got fired. So Americans have to do the jobs that are available to them because working in a retail store will pay you more money than in manufacturing. I guarantee that. The problem is Americans are lazy. We're putting tariffs on companies, because we don't want to get jobs selling things that we import from overseas. That's a much easier process than manufacturing something and then selling it. I mean, does anybody really want to work in a shoe factory? I mean, who wants to glue a pair of Air Jordans together? I would not want to do that. It seems to me like, if you would have more fun gluing this together than selling it, in a retail setting that you have, pretty poor taste. Um, what else is new in politics? Nothing good, particularly. Let me look at the Drudge Report. I want to see what is new. Uh, yeah. So, all right. Yeah. I mean, as I say, it doesn't seem like there's any good news in politics. The deficit is going up. I'm not an expert on the deficit, but the deficit is rising by trillions and trillions of dollars. I mean, I think every American owes like an entire college education worth of money as their portion of the deficit. Yes, so if I have a baby, little Jack is going to be born with like an $80,000 deficit. Now, this deficit makes it so that the kid can't really go to college unless they're like an Einstein. I mean, these days I would rather my kid work in retail than go to college. I think when Trump says "Make America Great Again," he's delusional. I mean, we're just not going back to the days wherein parents could send their kids to college and the kid would acquire a degree within 4 years that would pay them $100,000 per year when they graduate. We're learning that people who go to college, uh, even do an MBA, cannot find a job that they want. They overqualify themselves for jobs. I mean, I think that they have to start small. I mean, if you have an MBA, you could certainly get a managerial job at Walmart from what I know. or Amazon. I mean, retail companies hire anybody. The problem is that we're not getting, you know, jobs in cold calling. I mean, what has Trump done to protect cold callers? In the 1980s, remember how you used to be able to work in a boiler room? Like, in the past, you know, uh, people like me, instead of trying to become social media influencers, would sit at a desk and call people incessantly trying to sell them investments. Ben Affleck did a movie about it called The Boiler Room. You should look at it. It's a great movie. We don't have boiler rooms anymore because of the do not call list. Perhaps if Trump wants to make America great again, he should get rid of the do not call list. I think that the do not call list destroys boiler rooms and makes it so that only companies like J.P. Morgan, who are integrated in a bank, can sell investments to their customers. Perhaps I'm being fishy. He could have an exception for stockbrokers. Yeah, I mean, Trump can. I'm surprised, given the populist nature of the Republican Party, that they do not put exceptions on the do not call list for people who sell investments. I just considered that, and the more I run that idea through my head, it seems like it would help a lot of would-be brokers like I tried to be, make a lot of money. Um, yeah. So what else is going on in the world of American politics? I'm going to check Fox News. Let's see if I could find something to talk about. All right, what's on Fox News? All right, so on Fox News, we're seeing that the Senate version of the Great Big Beautiful Bill adds like an extra $1 trillion worth of spending. Yes, the Big Beautiful Bill passed the House of Representatives, but it's struggling in the Senate. The fact that the Senate version of the bill adds an extra $1 trillion in spending worries it kind of worries me, but it doesn't surprise me. The House is much more conservative than the Senate. It makes sense from a political science standpoint that as the spending bill graduates from the House to the Senate, the liberal senators are going to pack it up with, extra welfare handouts because the senators are always more liberal than the House since they have to win the entire state and the House only has to win like a district. Yeah, one part of the big beautiful bill that people aren't going to like is that it does cut a lot of welfare. It cuts a lot of Medicaid and that's going to make a lot of people very angry. People who need their diabetes drugs are going to be furious when they learn that you have to spend like $400 a month for Ozempic. Um, you know, and Trump's poll numbers do seem to be diminishing. Trump is not a wildly popular candidate like he used to be. Well, let me look at Trump's poll numbers. All right, let's see. How is Trump polling? Okay, so 2 days ago, Newsweek states that um, Donald Trump's ratings are falling to an all time low. Um, there's evidence that people might not have supported the controversial strikes on Iran. Let me see what it says about the Iranian strikes. There was widespread rejection of Trump's bombing of Iran, I'm surprised that there was widespread, rejection of the bombing of Iran. I understand it's controversial, but yes. So Trump is in a weird position because he's a second term president with a bifurcated presidency. So I guess I would predict for his poll numbers to dwindle. One big problem that Trump has is that the tariffs are wildly unpopular. People do not want to go to a Ducati dealership and have to spend 20% more on a Ducati or a Kawasaki, because this fool wants you to buy a Harley Davidson. I don't have a problem with Harley Davidsons, but I just don't understand why the government should penalize me if I decide to buy a foreign motorcycle. I think Harleys and Indians and Can-Ams are beautiful motorcycles. I just don't understand why I have to pay 20% more, because I'm not buying something that's made in America. Trump's support for tariffs, in my opinion, is most likely to hurt him the most. Uh, there's plenty of evidence that shows that tariffs don't really help anybody. The trade deficit has not decreased. Yes, so that's an economic data point you can look at in order to rebut Trump's tariffs. We haven't seen any move on the part of corporations to locate their factories in America. I think that corporations would be stupid to build factories in America because Trump is likely to lose election next term, and the next president is not going to. It's well, one easy way to win the next presidency is to say that you're going to abolish all the tariffs and provide people with cheap goods. Uh, Trump complained that the Fed was raising interest rates too fast. Trump doesn't want an independent Fed, because the tariffs don't work, and if the Fed increases the interest rates in order to quell inflation, then he's going to be in very big trouble, with the public. I got to get a drink. Yes, so Trump was also criticizing the Fed chair for saying that there was going to be an increase in interest rates in the future. Does How much inflation does Trump want? We've seen data points that show that the cost of purchasing a shoe is going up. I love Nike shoes, Air Jordans, and if you Google Nike price raises, you're going to learn that they are raising their prices on Air Jordans. Now, it doesn't really bother me if I spend $200 or $210 for a shoe. I'm pretty much well off. That hurts, people who live paycheck to paycheck. And the people who live paycheck to paycheck have a lot more voting clout than I have. I predict that Trump will have to cut a trade deal with China and Europe that negates his tariffs. But I don't believe that Europe and Canada should have any tariffs on us whatsoever. I am severely critical of Europe and Canada for having tariffs on like American made motorcycles. I mean, if you live in Italy, I don't understand why you should have to pay some type of tariff on, say, like a Harley Davidson or a Ford, because there's plenty of competition in Italy for cars. All tariffs, I believe that tariffs should only exist on things like tobacco and alcohol, as a means of dissuading people from using tobacco and alcohol. They're obviously not good for you, but there's no reason why I should pay a tariff on a pair of shoes if I order them from China. That's insanity. It's and I think that Americans have a libertarian streak in them. Both Democrats and Republicans want the government to micromanage every aspect of the economy. They want to balloon the size of the federal government, in order to create a welfare safety net. And a lot of Americans don't want that, you know. And I do believe that there is going to be a backlash against, the Trump tariffs. Oh, okay, so let's talk about the socialist mayor of New York, Mendani. If you make a lot of money, I would not recommend moving to New York City. If you're a grocery store worker, I wouldn't recommend, getting a job at Mendani's government managed uh, Walmart because I don't think it's going to find any suppliers. I don't understand which companies are going to send supplies to a government managed grocery store that wants to pay an extremely low price. I think that a government managed grocery store will drain supplies from other stores and cause all kinds of problems. When I looked up the concept of the government managed grocery store, I did learn that it would likely drain, a lot of supplies from existing grocery stores. That would obviously cause the prices to balloon. Mendani has stated that he wants to try to find a way to make people in white neighborhoods pay more in taxes. He's claiming that I'm not an expert on that, actually, but the gist of his program was to try to make people in affluent neighborhoods pay even more taxes. I guess he's somebody who believes that we should defund the military in order to provide welfare services. I don't like that paradigm because I think that if you give the poor too much food, they're just going to reproduce at a rate that overwhelms society with welfare babies. And that might sound like a mean thing to say, but I do think that's true. How much welfare is New York City supposed to give people who choose to live in a city that they can't afford to live in? I would like to live in a skyscraper uh, in Madison Park. I would love to have a loft in Soho. It's obvious to me when I look at New York City real estate pricing that I can't afford it, therefore I shouldn't live there. Perhaps if you live in New York City and you're overwhelmed by rent expense, move upstate. Th- There's no reason why the government needs to pay people, to live in New York City through socialism. Evict the poor. That's the solution to the problem. Mandani is scaring millionaires away. If you have like a $10 million net worth, I would not recommend moving to New York City. I believe that Mandani probably will win. There are just too many, people in New York City that want free stuff, and a good way to win an election in New York City is to just promise free stuff and say that we're going to tax the 1% in order to pay for the 99% of people who can't afford lettuce. To me, I mean, I understand the inevitability of a socialist winning in New York City. Capitalism is something that gets a bad rap. When people like me say that we don't want rent control, because we don't get it, we face a backlash. Um, Rent control is stupid. There should be no rent controls in New York City. If I were the president, I would ban any type of rent stabilization. I would tell New Yorkers that if you can't afford your apartment, get out. The landlord owns the property and can charge as much as he or she wants to. Uh, I've heard reports of landlords quitting New going filing for bankruptcy in New York City. Did you know that the landlord has to maintain the apartment regardless of if the renter can afford the rent expense? That to me is just silly. I mean, it is time to end the ridiculousness of any type of rent control. If I spend money on a condo in New York City and want to rent it out, I have every right to rent it to the highest bidder. It should not be my responsibility to provide a welfare check to someone who can't afford that apartment. I believe rent control is unconstitutional and should be, absolutely done away with. And, as far as Mandani complained about the Iranian strikes and, the supposed endless wars. See, what Mandani and Tucker Carlson have in common is that they view things like sending bazookas to Ukraine in order to destroy tanks as a series of endless wars that benefit the military industrial complex. They never weigh the cost of allowing Russia to conquer Europe. If Europe falls, then the next thing I could guarantee you that Russia does is invade Alaska. But I'm sure that socialists or communists, like Mandani, have no problem with allowing Russia to conquer, Alaska either because they hate America. Tucker Carlson and Tucker Carlson definitely is very similar in thinking to Mandani. If you look at the conversation Tucker Carlson had with Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're going to find that they both attacked Mandani because of public grocery stores, but they both agreed that, with Mandani's view that Trump should not have bombed Iran. I mean, Mandani, I'm not sure exactly what he said about Israel, but Mandani is not a friend of Israel. He's even not a friend of Ukraine. I mean, what has Mandani said about Putin besides that? I don't know what he said about Putin. I'll have to look it up. I can't believe a socialist, sees any heroism in Ukrainian soldiers putting their lives on the line every day, fighting against the genocidal madman. As again, I'll have to look up what he said, but Mandani, criticized, Trump's bombing campaign of Iran as a series of endless wars. That's usually code speak for an isolationist. If Mandani wanted to condemn someone, why didn't he condemn Iran's campaign in Yemen and how the Iranians teamed up with the Syrians to destroy half of the population? The Democratic, most portions of the Democratic Party and the isolationist portions of the Republican Party are intellectually bankrupt. They have no plan when it comes to foreign policy. They lure in voters with, by saying we're going to defund the military and give you food stamps. That they're not going to do that. The first thing they do when they get in is that they'll move to the left. Yes, and I'm going to kill the political discussion and talk about AI. Now, of course, I generated this image via Grok's AI program, but I might not be able to do that in the future because Disney is suing a company an AI company. I think it's called Deep Aware. I'm not sure. So yes, with Grok AI, you can create photorealistic characters of copyrighted people. It's like I used the Grok AI to generate an image of Spider-Man, similar to the image that Disney is suing Deep Aware over. My question to Disney is, will you sue Grok? I've demonstrated on multiple YouTube channels that the AI image generators do not follow the copyright laws. ChatGPT will not let you generate deep fakes of people like this. Neither will Google's, but Elon Musk is running a very risky experiment with Grok, because with Grok you could generate, deep fakes of Taylor Swift, Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, and I'm wondering if anybody is going to be like Disney and sue Grok for allowing their images to be sold in AI form. I've with Grok, I've generated images of Tom Cruise, all sorts of people. It seems to me like the AI companies might have a case for a lawsuit against Elon Musk. Disney is the first AI company, the first content holder to sue an AI company for allowing users like me to create fake images of their characters. If you look at my at Drone Thrust channel, I did a video like a year ago about how ChatGPT and Google AI lets you generate fake images of characters like Freddy Krueger, Chucky, you know, and Stephen King's It. That video needs to be looked at again. I want to get involved in the lawsuit. I want to file an abacus brief in order to get my name out. Yes, please feel free to subscribe to this channel and my at Drone Thrust channel. I'm an upcoming influencer, and I talk about controversial subjects. I don't only do like shoe and drone reviews. I like to obviously ruffle the feathers. I talk a lot about things like Scientology. If you look at my at Drone Thrust channel, you're going to see that I posted interviews of Scientologists making highly controversial statements, and I respect them for that. If you're a Scientologist, I encourage you to speak your mind, because I think that when a Scientologist, opens their mouth, they have a tendency of propagating L. Ron Hubbard's extremism. And you're going to see on my other channel, my most viewed video is a video I posted of Tom Cruise extolling the virtues of Scientology, back during The Last Samurai press junket on Larry King. Yes, controversial quotes and drone thrust. I'm an upcoming political commentator. I want to be like as big as, Ben Shapiro, Bill O'Reilly, and Sean Hannity. And with your help, I'll get there. Thank you for watching this telecast.